From the Stereo Sound Record Studios, your home for the best in unsigned and indie punk, rock, and metal. This is The Mosh Pit with your host, Wes Everett.
Welcome to The Mosh Pit. I'm your host, Wes Everett. I am here with my buddy, Kenneth from Silent Monolith. How you doing, man?
I'm outstanding, man. How are you?
I am great. I am enjoying this lovely fall weather that we are finally starting to get.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm from the South. I hate summertime in the South because of how hot it is. I'm so looking forward to this crisp fall air for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, before we get into the dead of winter and it's just like 0 degrees.
Absolutely.
So give us a little backstory about Silent Monolith, how you guys kind of got together, and what your story is on the band.
Sure, man. We formed in Nashville a few years ago. I'd probably say about literally, I guess we formed about 9 years ago, I guess, if you want to say officially, but we didn't record and release our first album until 2015. So I wasn't quite, there's that gray area. Well, you're jamming with a bunch of folks, but are you really a band yet? For a little while there. So, but we formed Nashville, Tennessee. I met our former and founding member, bass player named Nate Davenport. We just kind of hit it off. We had a lot of the same interest as far as bands and kind of the same vision of what kind of band we wanted to start, and that's kind of how it happened. And from there, it was it kind of became what it is. Unfortunately, Nate's no longer with the band, but me and him kind of started this thing, like I said, about 9 years ago here in Nashville.
So 9 years.
Roughly. I mean, like I said, yeah. we didn't release the first album until 2015. So I mean, there was a couple years there where, you're kind of doing that whole, you're rotating members, trying to find the right folks.
Yep. Trying to get your feet wet, trying to get that whole. All right, what is our sound?
Our sound is we are just straight up stoner rock. Very cool. And like a lot of folks, may not are stoner metal. Whatever. It's just think. Someone said a really good adjective was a sound guy here in Nashville said that we, he was asking us kind of who our influences were, and like he was like, oh yeah, you guys play slacker rock. So that's another adjective we like to. Yeah, slacker rock. That sounds good.
I like that.
But basically, it's just Southern fried, Black Sabbath influenced metal and hard rock, if you want to get into a detailed definition.
Oh man, how do you go wrong with that?
Well, I mean, I guess if you write some terrible songs, then you are something is going wrong.
Yeah, as long as
we have.
Oh man. So speaking on influences, I'm going to ask that question. Where do you guys pull them from?
Man, it starts with Black Sabbath, just like anybody, I think, in this genre. Mm-hmm. Anybody who picks up a guitar and wants to play heavy, loud music, it starts with Black Sabbath. So I think that's number one. I guess for me personally, like my favorite bands, if you were to like, put a gun to my head and say, tell me your top 5 favorite bands. Well, that's almost impossible. But if I absolutely had to, just me personally, my personal influences is I'd have to say the reason I ever wanted to play guitar and be in a band goes back to Metallica. Now I know that's kind of generic, and I know there's a lot of folks that say that seems to be the stock, answer nowadays. But I don't care, because it's the truth. Like I heard Metallica the first time when I was like 9 years old at a friend's house, and we were riding skateboards, and he put on "And Justice for All," and the first song, Blackened. I'm skateboarding around his garage, and Blackened comes on, and I literally fell off my skateboard onto the ground and staring at his little boombox. as this song was playing, because I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And from then on, I was like, I want to be in a band. I want to play music like that. I want to play in a band like that. So that's, Metallica's will always probably be my number one. I discovered Sabbath through my dad, because my dad's a huge Sabbath and Zeppelin fan. But I would say Sabbath is probably a bigger influence on the band than Metallica. But Sabbath, has become, I would say I draw more because of the style of music that we play. I draw more from Sabbath than I do Metallica. But I'm not going to sit and say that they're not they are definitely an influence. I know that's a roundabout answer to the question. Starts and ends with Sabbath, Metallica, Corrosion of Conformity, Fu Manchu, Clutch, even the band called The Sword. They're killer. Caius, Monster Magnet. I mean, the list could go on and on and on as far as, I have different influences personally, again, like I mentioned, but even though I wouldn't say Metallica is a big influence on this band, personally, they're an influence of mine, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bands that have kind of contributed to our sound, I would say. And hopefully we, we're hopefully we're not directly ripping them off, but
just paying a little homage,
but paying tribute,
Exactly.
I like to say, man, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just trying to add our own little spoke to it,
Honeybone Rush, Pagan Rituals.
I mean, there's so many good bands out there now as
Yeah.
far as, to pull your influence from.
Yeah. Oh,
But
Soundgarden. Yeah, I forgot. Can't believe it. Soundgarden's one of my favorites. I love Soundgarden. And, I know probably can't hear a lot of that in our style too, but they're a huge influence of ours for sure.
I feel like Chris Cornell in general was a huge influence on a lot of the artists today.
Well, he's the greatest singer to ever live, the greatest rock singer to ever live. I mean, I used to think it was Robert Plant, and then I discovered Soundgarden, and I was like, Chris Cornell. I mean, he's one of my favorite just songwriters, because even his solo stuff was killer. It was killer. It sounded so good, and he's such a great songwriter. With Soundgarden and just outside of Soundgarden, hell, the Audio Slave, if that's kind of your bag, that was great stuff too. But I just, I'm glad we have such a large collection of his music, but I'm going to miss. He's one of those artists that obviously died too soon, and he's also one of those artists that even obviously because he passed away, he's no longer going to create music. But even us as fans, we still miss it, even though we don't even know what it would sound like. We just have an idea of what it would sound like, and we know it would be great. So it's fun. It's weird how we miss music that's never going to be created, but we do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's one of those. He's one of those folks that for sure.
You guys just released an album.
Yes, sir.
And was it a full EP or was it?
Yeah, no, it's a full album.
Full album.
Full
Okay.
8-song album. Yeah, I guess 8 song would be considered a full length.
I think so. I don't know. That's one of those things that you can argue with people about. Nah, full's got to be 10 or 12.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Master of Puppets is 8 songs.
Right. Yeah. There you go. That's the gold standard right there.
I mean, who would have thought that we released our Master of Puppets this year? It's just like Master of Puppets, just a lot shittier.
There you go. That describes it right there.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah. It's just like Master of Puppets, except the songs aren't as good and doesn't sound as good, wasn't produced as well. Because I was the producer, so yeah, it definitely was not produced as well. Trust me.
When you walk in to sell it, you're like, "Hey, do you like Metallica?" Yes. Well, you're gonna hate this CD.
Well, I always say, I like my joke is, I can only hope that one day we write, record, and release an album that's hated as much as Saint Anger.
Oh, good luck. Good luck.
Well, I mean, just think about it. If it's hated that much, that means millions of people heard it.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Exactly. So from this last album, you've released how many tracks?
We released an EP, and then we released a full length, and we've also released a couple of singles in between. In between there, we released after our EP, a couple years after our EP, we actually did this like kind of one-off recording in the studio where we won some free recording time, and we cut a single live in the studio called Lord of Saturn. And then during the pandemic, when everyone was kind of shut down, the studio here in Nashville was doing these live sessions, so bands could still release music. And we went in and we recorded a cover of Led Zeppelin's No Quarter, like purely 100% live in studio. So, and there's video of that. So we released that as well. And then, here this past July, we released our new album.
Ventras, Serpent.
on the surface, tyrannize the world, smothering our inhabitants left behind. Truth be told, one, come with your aim, fuck with your line, sick fucking line, pillaging savages, slaughter inhabitants. Must you fly with angel wings, choose to fly and not to leave, with your serpent toss you for the world, with such deceiving walls. Serpents leap on the silence, demonizing and ghosts. Fill my snakes and the lizards to be their kind. Feel their cold run, steep in your mind. Fuck with your line, sick fucking line. Pillaging savages, slaughter inhabitants. Must you fly with angel wings, choose to fly and not to leave, with your serpent toss you for the world, with such deceiving smile. Cold blood, sinking your teeth in cold blood. Cold blood, sinking your teeth in cold. I've learned to play in increments to keep me holding on. I've learned to play in increments to keep me holding on.
Very cool. Very cool. What was it like putting that album together? Was it just, did you,
Oh man, I would say the whole process of recording the album and getting it ready to go was a nightmare. And I not from and it had, but it was a nightmare, but had nothing to do with like my bandmates, had nothing to do with the writing process, or had nothing to do with the actual recording. It was all the stuff going on in my personal life around it that caused it, because we actually started tracking the new album back in 2018.
no?
But right before we started tracking, I was around November of 17. I almost died. I got a blood infection from a second degree burn on my foot, and the infection went septic, and I ended up having to go spend a week in the hospital, and I almost died. I was that sick.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, I spent a week in the hospital. and they had to do surgery. Had to actually amputate a couple toes because of the infection. And after that, I spent months in a wheelchair. And in fact, and also too, to add to that same week, the same day actually that I went into the hospital, my dad went into the hospital down in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And he passed away that week as well. So luckily I was able to get discharged and get down to Atlanta to see him before he passed. But yeah, that was definitely the worst week of my life, without a doubt. I mean, it was a horrible week, and kind of since then, with my health issues have kind of come and gone. And I've had to have multiple surgeries, I've had multiple amputations because of these wounds that, because of where they're located on my feet. They heal and they reopen, and they heal and they reopen. Like I'm fighting a wound right now that's hopefully just about healed, but it's been a process ongoing for years. And we also recently, earlier this year, we lost a mother-in-law who, and she had a stroke a couple years ago in the middle of all this. So everything that's happened has made it a nightmare process just to get this album out. But what's crazy about it had nothing to do with the writing process, nothing to do with the bandmates. Even though we're not the same lineup,
Mm-hmm.
that had nothing. That was not. It's not because of any bad blood between me and the guys who used to be in the band. It's mainly just the fact that there was so much. We went through a couple years there where everything was up in the air. And you really can't, you got folks that, that want to play music and want to get out there. You can't expect folks to sit around and wait, and I get that. So, so that, that kind of, that's the reason of the lineup changes. No bad blood, no vindictiveness or anything like that. It's mainly my health issues has just, left a lot of stuff up in the air. And that's the reason why it took so long to get this album out there. Because some of these songs go back, I know a couple of the riffs go back to when the band first started. Oh, wow. One of the songs on the album goes back to a band that I was in Atlanta.
Wow.
So, it's so yeah, it was tough. It was almost a breath of fresh air just to get the album out there. This is a load off my shoulders, and it's kind of one of those. All right, it's out now. What's next? Because I am already sick of these songs.
Yep, I can completely understand that, dude. Dude, that sounds like it was rough. It sounds terrible that all that happened. Yay, we got music, but at the same time, it's like, good grief. Yeah. Do I have to do this every time I release an album?
No, I hope not. I kind of want to keep the 17 digits I have left. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man.
My little piggies went to the market and they ain't coming back, and I don't want them. I don't want to lose any more.
Oh man, I completely understand.
But I will say though, that like, as far as the lyrical content of the album, like this album is much, much angrier than the previous EP. However, it's there's really not one curse word on the album, believe it or not. Wow. It's a different kind of anger, I guess, than the past one. So, but my health issues contribute, because I would say a lot of the lyrics came later. The music again has been around for years, but the lyrics came later, and when you go through a lot of stuff, you get angry about everything.
Oh yeah. Well, man, that is that's a story right there, man.
Yeah. I would say that my wife and I have been through it past 5 or 6 years, and it's I couldn't have I couldn't have done it without her for sure. Like I don't know if I'd still be here if it weren't for her. Of much stuff I went through. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to just give up because of everything, but she keeps pushing me to, continue on and to continue to do better and to continue that things are going to be better and to just keep pushing forward. And, part of me too, the stubborn part of me is like, you know what, I'm not going to let this beat me. So, I'm a really stubborn person to a fault sometimes, but
yeah, but sometimes you got to be, and having that support system behind you means, that's night and day difference.
Absolutely.
It really
100%. 100%. When you have someone that you care about more than anything on this earth and who's encouraging you and staying in your corner and wants you to continue to, because she knows how important it is to me. That means the world. There's nothing that is better than that.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about this new upcoming album you guys are working on. You've got a planned release of early 23.
Yes.
Do you already have the songs? Are you still working on the songs?
We've already got a few songs, like I said, we're in the writing process right now. We've already got a few songs and, it's going to be heavier than even this last album. So yeah, we're going into a direction, going to be a little bit more aggressive vocal delivery on some songs. It's going to be, big, fat, heavy, like we're super stoked about it so far, the direction that we've gotten and where we're going. I can't wait for folks to hear it, but we may sprinkle in some different things into the writing process. So, but overall, it's going to be a more aggressive, heavier, bigger album. At least that's where we're going so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear it. Do you have are you guys going to release any singles prior to the album release?
I would imagine, yes. I would imagine whatever one we're going to lead with, we'll throw that out there, probably with a video. That seems to be the standard practice. So I'm sure we'll do something like that for, probably a few weeks, couple months, maybe before the album comes out, for sure.
Silent Monolith, Burn.
feel free to tag the Mosh Pit. We'll help share it.
Absolutely.
Help get the word out about it.
Absolutely, man. And hopefully we can get down to Atlanta for a show or two. But you know, if we do, I'll definitely let you know and get you guys on the list.
Yeah,
you guys
definitely.
Can check us out for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something we're working on here in Rockmart. Is we're trying to get more live music. When I say we, I mean more like me. I'm trying to bring more bands here because, well, we need it.
Well, let me know because I mean we got friends and we could put together a pretty killer show. You know, probably pretty much anywhere around Atlanta.
Nice. Well, like I said, before we started the interview, my studio's in a really good location.
Sure.
I'm 20 minutes from I-20. I'm about the same from 75. It's just it's about perfect.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
we're down in Atlanta all the time because my family's still down there. My mom still lives. She lives in Metro Atlanta, so we're still down there a lot.
Very cool.
And I got tons of friends down there as well. So I don't know if I'll ever move back to Atlanta, but I love the state of Georgia, and I love visiting, and it will always be it'll always be home.
Oh yeah. I don't mind Atlanta. I hate the traffic.
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
I have just come to loathe the traffic.
Oh my, yeah. Oh, it's funny. I moved to Nashville in 2009, and when I first got here, I made it a point because I lived and I worked on Music Row when I got here. And one day, we'd be done working. It's funny here on Music Row and the music industry in Nashville. Basically, your working hours are like 10 to 4. It's weird, it's crazy. But anyway, so I made it a point when I first got. I'm going to go get out and drive in rush hour. Oh, I was like, this is it. This is nothing compared to Atlanta. Oh, you can't, if you don't leave your house before 5 a.m. and you have to go to Atlanta, forget about it.
Oh yeah. Listen, man, I work one of those jobs, my regular 9 to 5. I'm one of those road warriors who, at any given point, I could be in Augusta, Savannah, Valdosta, Columbus at any time during the week.
Yes.
And a lot of times they're like last minute of, hey, you got to go there now. And it's like, that is a horrible drive.
We plan our trips around Atlanta traffic.
You have to. You have to.
Yeah, we do. If we're going to Atlanta, we're like, we got to leave by this time or else we got to wait till this time.
And if you're going through McDonough, if you're going on 75 from McDonough to about Hampton or Jonesboro area, you got to allow for an extra 2 hours.
Yep.
If you're hitting Panola Road from 20 at any time of the day, you got to allow for another 2 hours.
Yep. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And there's constant road work. Constant.
We don't ever finish road work. We just throw up cones and go, drive around.
Well, it's funny, like in the years since 2009, I've lived here, every year traffic in Nashville has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's still not up to the Atlanta standard, but it's getting there. I know it's horrendous.
It really is.
You got to go from Nashville to Murfreesboro on I-24 at around 3:00. Forget about it. Forget about it.
I've done that drive. I've done that horrible freaking drive.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on back to the interview.
We can have a whole podcast on Atlanta traffic and call it fuck this shit.
Yes, exactly. And I guarantee you we'd get more calls talking about hey, I know that area.
What was that Family Guy episode? You know what grinds my gears? Atlanta traffic.
Oh, absolutely. Back to the interview. Your next 12 months, what are 3 goals you want to accomplish?
Okay, well, 2 of them we are currently working on. Is a new album, and we are starting to book tour. Okay. 12 months from now, we got booking some tour dates later this year. We are working on a big tour next year, probably next summer. I can't really announce it yet, but it's really cool, really cool. And that's kind of something we're working on that'll be next summer. But I would say touring and or at least getting out and playing more. We've been really limited this that past couple of months because of my health issues. I don't really want to tour when I still have a open wound on my foot.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's kind of hindered us a little bit. But once that gets healed, and we're going to be playing a hell of a lot more. We're going to be touring a hell of a lot more, and working on getting the next album out. And as far as a third goal, I guess that's true. You really don't think past touring and releasing music, but I guess if I had were to say my biggest third goal is to more of a personal thing, and that's to stay healthy.
There you go. That's a good goal, man.
Yeah, stay healthy so that the band can continue releasing music and continue playing shows. And I would say that I guess that should be goal number one. To really believe it. I mean, I guess because that kind of hinders everything. But I guess try to stay healthy, to get this new album out there and play and book more tour dates. So. Nice. Yeah, I mean that's the next, and I guess that's every band's next 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah, if not, it should be.
Yeah.
As far as
I guess every band kind of like wants the stand, the kind of the standard. Well, hopefully we get signed and all that stuff, but that's. Nowadays, I think there's so many resources available that musicians can release music themselves, and if they have a plan and they are able to enact that plan,
mm-hmm.
you don't need labels.
Mm-mm.
You don't need labels. I mean, and the big labels are like these huge labels are. It's actually more of a headache to be on there than just doing it yourself. Now there are some killer stoner rock labels out there that have some killer bands, and we would love to be a part of them. But at the same time, you can't just base everything you do around trying to get signed. You have to put forth,
right?
The effort and the know-how. And to just trying to do it, go it alone, I mean, it'd be nice to get help,
mm-hmm.
but like, at the end of the day, no one is going to care about your music more than you do.
Right.
So, and if you can admit that and you can accept that, then you also can accept the fact that because no one else is going to care as much about your music as you do, then that really you can only depend on yourself.
Absolutely.
And when I say depend on myself, I mean like collectively as a band. We can only depend on ourselves. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not meaning like me as an individual, but us as a band.
Right. Yeah, man. Dude, I appreciate you again sitting in on this interview.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one, and dude, I know life happens sometimes, and hey, we just roll with it.
Yes, sir. That's all we can do.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. As far as your biggest challenge, I know you spoke on some of them, but what, as far as being a challenge as a band, have you guys run into other than the pandemic, the lockdown, all that nonsense?
The biggest challenge for any band, I will say for any band that's not teenagers or, college students, the biggest challenge for any band is being able to balance. Because when you get if you're not 16, 17, 18 years old, and you don't have a family, you don't have, you could leave on leave and go out on tour and not have a worry in the world other than just concentrating on music. So the biggest challenge when you get older and you get families or at least you want to start a family, or in my case, I've got a wife and mortgage and all that stuff. The biggest challenge is just balancing work-life balance. Having a healthy work-life balance. I think because when you get older and you get more and more responsibilities, like all chasing dreams has to be adjusted in some cases. Oh yeah. And you have to, if you'd asked me when I was 22 years old, what's my view of success? I'd be like, I want to be the next Metallica, tour the world, and then ask me when I'm 32, and it's like, yeah, I mean, if we can just pay some bills, that's success.
Yeah. Yes, it is
success. So I say the biggest challenge is for fans, for guys. When I say older, not, I don't mean, like super old, but older than like kind of your high school kids and stuff like that. Is, when you have jobs and mortgages and bills to pay and more responsibilities, it's just having a healthy, music to life balance to where you can still create and play music, but also take care of what you have to take care of personally.
Right.
So that's the biggest challenge once you get past a certain age.
Symphony of Sweden, She's in My Head.
Eyes tell no lies. We know what we had, it was real. We're both in denial. All the feelings we had, they weren't real. But we know the truth, and it sucks to feel like this. I still hear your voice in my head, in my mind, you exist. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. We cannot run from what we truly feel, and we cannot hide from what we truly miss. Your skin on my lips, your touch, your words, your kiss. I remember all this. We fucked up, a good thing, it's true. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. If I could live it, I would. If I could love it, I would. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head, on my mind, in my dreams all the time. She's in my head.
Yes, it is. It 100% is. And on top of that, just even those bands that are trying to do it to become rich and
Sure.
famous, and it's
Sure.
like you're in the wrong business, bro.
Yeah. 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 100%. I mean, think about this, like when we were in high school, the biggest metal band in the world was Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, shit. Actually, when we were in high school, Metallica had already been the biggest heavy metal band in the world for like probably 5 to 10 years before that.
Yep.
Well, now this years and years later, they're still the biggest heavy metal band in the world. And it's like those bands at that level don't exist anymore, and they probably never will. It's this. I mean, it's crazy. Like the big rock stations, and I remember in Atlanta, the big rock station was 96 Rock.
Yes.
And that's old. But here is 1029 The Buzz, and like their playlist is Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then they sprinkle in some bands that I wouldn't even consider hard rock or rock, but for some reason they're grouped in that category nowadays.
You're talking about like Imagine Dragons and
yes, stuff like that. And that's not what I considered rock when I was growing up. But those bands are still those bands. Are still the big bands, and no one's really came along and taken their place. And you could look at it from a point of view, from a negative point of view, and be like, well, no band's as good as those guys. And that's just not true. I mean, there's some killer, great, amazing bands out there, but what it is the culture has changed. And fortunately for those guys, they got in and got famous and big before the culture changed. Unfortunately for all the bands that came after them, is the culture has changed, and it's not the same culture as it was, whenever those guys were coming up. So, so that's a challenge for any band. And I think that if you are doing it to be rich and famous, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. First of all, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think everybody would love to be able to be rich and famous. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly.
I think, who wouldn't? But like really, you're talking about, it takes, unfortunately, it takes you to already be rich and famous to get rich and famous.
Mm-hmm.
It
really have money to make money.
I mean, like I owned a music marketing firm on Music Row for the first 7 years I lived here in Nashville. And I had so many, and it was mainly in the country world. I'm a songwriter outside of playing in a rock band, and like and songwriters are really only relevant in country music nowadays. They're still, really everybody else pretty much writes their own stuff, and country music has gotten to the point where artists are writing more of their own stuff. But it used to be songwriters would write songs, and you would pitch them to artists and producers, and they would take those songs and record them. Like George Strait made a career out of recording songs written by other people. Anyway, I would meet with a ton of these independent artists, and they would always, I'd ask them, "What's your goal?" "I want to be rich. I want to be famous." "Well, you need to, don't find something else," and they'd get offended, and I tell them, I said, "Do you love making music?" "Well, yeah." "Well, then that's why you do it." Said, "Yeah, but I want to be rich and famous." I said, "Well, everybody wants to be rich and famous. Like, what makes you unique? What makes your songs? What makes you first of all, what makes you unique? And do you have any financial backing to take your unique style and your unique music to the masses? Because if you don't, then you better do it because you love it."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that really can apply to any genre of music. I mean, if we had, I had a friend of mine ask me the other day, he said, "Man, how much would it cost to take one of your songs, like one of the Silent Monolith songs, to major radio?" And I said, "Man," I said, "you're probably talking $100,000. He's like, "Really? 100,000?" I said, "Yeah." I said, you can't just call your radio station and be like, "Hey man, play Silent Monolith." You can't call your major clear channel radio station and be like, "Man, play Silent Monolith." That they're gonna be like, "What? No."
Yeah.
You got to have a marketing plan that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars behind them.
Yep, you do, and it sucks. Now, I will give props. I will give props to our hometown rock and roll station, which basically is 96 Rock just now.
Yeah.
Rock 100.5 out of Atlanta.
Sure.
Really great guys. I mean, it's pretty much, it's kind of funny because it's actually the two former hosts of 96 Rock and 99X together.
Okay.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then at night, they got a guy, he's Atlanta's rock ambassador, Jackson Heaton, and he plays. Yeah. We are cut from the same cloth. I'll just put it that way. We love unsigned and independent punk rock and metal. We find these bands that are local, homegrown, that are just killing it, and nobody knows them.
Fair shake, change.
Kissing my shadow with the knife. Another problem token. Another day I've broken. Psychotherapy. Another round for me. I take another drink. Then the truth takes me. Rabbit holes and nights with you, running out, false news to chew, gender roles and saying you're sorry. I'm out of this and that is news to you. So there's a problem token. Psychotherapy. Another round for me. I take another drink. Then the dream takes me. Psychotherapy. Another round for me. Another round for me. When you stab my back, you stab my heart. If you could take it back, you'd still tear me apart. Psychotherapy.
Yeah, we met Jackson. Our last show we played in Atlanta. We met him at Smith's Old Bar. Now it's been a few years because that was before everything went to shit for my health wise.
Right.
You know, but yeah, we met him and yeah, great guy. Right, really, really great guy. Nice guy. And yeah, had a great conversation with him. But yeah, I talked to him for a little ways after we played Smith's Old Bar. And I think it was, yeah, that was right before everything went to shit health wise for me.
I feel that, man. I feel that. And he's doing some kick ass stuff. He's doing his thing. We cross paths every now and then, do some stuff together. Yeah. And then we go kick ass by ourselves again.
Yeah. He's a good dude, man. I love that because here in Atlanta we have, I'm not sure, so here in Atlanta, here in Nashville we have 1029 The Buzz does a local buzz.
Yeah.
They'll do a local buzz radio show on Sunday evenings and stuff, and we've had our stuff played on there, but nothing from Nash. I mean, we've had our stuff on some satellite radio. Like we've had our songs played a few times on like Liquid Metal, and there's a new one. It's not called Octane. Octane is kind of the radio rock.
Yeah,
I can't remember for the life of me. I can't remember the damn.
Is it Turbo?
Yeah, Turbo.
Yeah. I got all three of those on mine, so yeah, I love those stations.
Yeah. I mean, it's been rare. I'm not saying they play it all the time, but we've had a couple spins on there.
Nice.
So,
nice. Very cool.
I wish more radio stations would adopt that because I really honestly believe that terrestrial radio is because in the country world, going back to the country world, those big stations, they call it terrestrial radio, and really the songs that you hear is just filler for the commercials.
Yeah.
The commercials is what matters. But I think what's going to save terrestrial radio, because right now it's dying. It's a dying format.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's but with social media being what it is, and with internet radio stations growing like they are, with YouTube getting as big as it is, and with Spotify and Pandora being what they are, like terrestrial radio is dying. But I think it's my view that terrestrial radio, what could save terrestrial radio, and it will never happen because it's these are corporations that live and die off the dollar.
Yep.
But if they went to more of a format where they would give more exposure to independent, smaller, local bands, I think that could be where terrestrial radio could discover a niche, whatever. I can't even discover a niche that they will be able to survive and will be able to prosper. Now, it won't be, because right now everything is, all Clear Channel stations are programmed.
Yep.
With the exception of the DJs, like it's the same playlist that's played and looped.
Yep. And
there's no radio stations used to be, hell, you could call in 96 Rock and, request album cut from a band that you like, and they play it. Barring it didn't have a lot of curse words or whatnot, but all that's right. Censorship type stuff. But and like that's just not the case anymore because it's gotten so corporate. Because these huge corporations came along and bought all these radio stations up, and like I said, it's all about. And it's gotten to the point too where radio is just it literally is background music. Yeah, I used to listen to the radio because I wanted to hear the bands, but now it's just background music at the office just to keep you a little distracted from your mundane day-to-day life.
100%, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly on that. There's one, and going back to what you said, the country station, going back to that is honestly where I kind of pulled this idea for this podcast. Was they were showcasing and promoting unsigned and indie local country artists.
Yes.
And they would play like 10 a night. You'd go online, you'd vote for your favorites. Whoever got the most votes would stay to the next week, and they'd drop out like the bottom 3 or 4 and, start again the following week. And I was like, dude, that is so cool. Why is nobody doing that for rock?
Yep, exactly. It's because I think, and this is just my opinion, and this is not a knock on anybody or any genre, but I think it's because, excuse me, I think it's because with a lot of these country artists, even your independent, unsigned artists, they're easy to digest because they are pretty much. I'm not saying every one of them, but they're pretty much cookie cutter artists. I'm not saying there aren't some outliers that are killer artists doing something different. Right. like Colton Wall, or Jason Isbell.
Yep.
Or Tyler Childers, those guys are just so, or Elizabeth Cook. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about some killer artists that they're not your cookie cutter country artists, but they are making a living by touring and by getting sporadic radio play on these stations like that you mentioned. But a lot of these artists are the same. They all want to be Brantley Gilbert. They all want to be Florida Georgia Line, or they want to be Carrie Underwood. So I think but where these radio stations have benefited is they know this. So what they've done, they've kind of adjusted their format to what you were saying about local artists and unsigned and independent artists. And some of these stations are thriving, but they're thriving, which kudos to them. Great. I think that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But the reason why they are thriving is because these artists sound like these major artists. So somebody who's listening who's not really paying attention, they're going to be like, "Oh, is that Carrie Underwood?" So they're going to listen, but no, it's not Carrie Underwood. It's Jennifer Smith from Atlanta, who's like, "Oh, well." Now that may lead somebody to be like, "I want to know more about Jennifer Smith," and I just made that up. There's no artist Jennifer Smith. I'm just using a generic name. So they may be like, "Well, I want to know more about her," and that's how it happens, But the reason why is because, again, with country, it's more digestible than you have rock bands where, you could have a band that sounds like Metallica, then you have a band that comes along and sounds like Rage Against the Machine, or you have a band that comes on and sounds like Slayer, or in our case, you have a band that comes on and sounds like like a bastardized version of Black Sabbath, and like that's more of a. You've got to be like metal fans and hard rock. They're pretty hardcore fans, and like they love what they love, and like it's like we love what we love, and fuck the rest, And I'm not saying all, we obviously, I'm not generalizing everybody, but I'm saying so it's not as easily digestible as kind of your cookie cutter bro country,
right?
So I think that's the hesitation for a lot of rock radio stations.
Yeah, it really is. And it's kind of sad,
yes,
but at the same time, it's understandable. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I understand it. It's frustrating because being someone who's who is in a rock band and wants exposure, it is frustrating because you're like, man, I mean, this, just forget about us. I mean, there's so many other bands out there that need to be discovered and need people to pay attention to, and because they sound so good and they write such killer riffs and killer music, and like, now granted, not to say it's all radio. I mean, there are some bands that that should put more effort into songwriting and more effort into production. Because just because you can record at home doesn't mean you need to be recording at home.
Exactly.
Just because like that's I mean, and there are some very talented folks, and the technology is there to record at home, but sometimes you don't need to be recording at home.
Oh yeah. Well, and speaking on technology, I've got a couple of bands that I didn't know about until I interviewed them that they've actually never met each other in person.
Wow.
One guy's in New York, one guy's in California, and they just put out this kick-ass music, and it's like, But you guys never met it. No, we've never met each other. We just send each other tracks and play our stuff and do our thing. And like
that's
so cool.
That's every night in Nashville. I mean, like you go to Broadway, most of those folks that even though you go bar to bar, it's all the same songs and all that stuff, but more than likely those players, that band, they just met right before they started playing.
That's so cool though. I love that.
And then you have sessions, which is the coolest thing if you ever get a chance to sit in on a demo session or recording session. It has to be country music.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to do it, it's amazing. Those guys will walk in, introduce themselves to each other. Hi, I'm Jeff. Hey, I'm James, and sit down and record 6 to 8 songs better than the songwriter could ever even thought about recording them.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's amazing. It will never get old, because Nash. You're talking about the greatest musicians in the world, and I stand by that. Like, I think Nashville has the greatest collection of musicians in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So and it's amazing, and it's gotten like that because there's some bands that even in our genre that they really they live in different corners of the country, but they get together for tours and for festivals and for recording.
Yep.
Some pretty big bands in our genre.
Oh yeah. Well, man, dude, I appreciate you again sitting in. This has been such a good conversation. Just picking your brain, learning all this.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
And again, we will do this again. Like I said, I try to catch up about 6 months after, do a 6-month follow-up, just see what's going on, see if there's anything new happening.
Yes, sir.
And we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Do me a favor, plug your socials where all of our wonderful social media people can find you.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you, our home base is silentmonolithband.com. And, from there, we have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a TikTok. We have our Pandora station. We're on Spotify. I mean, all that. And you can get to all that from our website if you wanted to, or you can go, Google us and go to those individually if you wanted to. But, we're on all the socials. YouTube, almost forgot about YouTube. We got a YouTube channel now where we got all our music videos up. So yeah, we're easy to find. I like to say we're easy to find and hopefully not that much harder to listen to.
There you go, man. Well, again, thank you so much, and I'll tag you when this one drops.
All right, Wes, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir, buddy. Bye.
Yeah, bye.